My brother Sean and his wife have an old African grey parrot. His wife Molly inherited the bird from her mom when she died. The bird, Tiku, was a staple of my brother and Molly's relationship. He was there since the beginning and has continued to be from the era of awkward first dates to the 10th year of marriage. My brother and Molly were a happy couple, to be sure, the picture of domestic bliss. As the scruffy older brother, I was always understandably a bit jealous of that happiness, but still loving. The two worked hard for their share, putting in their 9 to 5 at work. For such dedicated, loving people, having their first child should have been easy, but whether it's been the miscarriages or the stillbirths for 9 years, it looked like children just weren't meant to be for Molly. Until about a year ago, when she gave birth to Ryan. She fawned over him whenever I visited and sent pictures whenever her mother-in-law asked. After a year of around-the-clock parenting, the wear on Molly and my brother was starting to show, and they were persuaded to take a vacation. Since my mother was the closest to their home, it was decided at first that she'd be the one to take care of Ryan and Tiku. The problem hit after Molly and Sean had already boarded their flight. My mom's landlord could approve of a sudden baby in the apartment, but not a giant bird that could randomly screech or poop everywhere. Despite Molly's constant assertions throughout the years that Tiku didn't screech, and the last thing that she ever mimicked was a 1980s soap jingle, Tiku's stay didn't fly. I would have taken both the bird and Ryan. I rarely get to see my nephew as it was, but my landlord was, interestingly enough, the opposite mind of my mother's. I could have the bird, but not the baby. So I drove out 30 minutes to meet my mom and tickle Ryan's stomach. I loaded the cage and Tiku into my car and headed back to my bachelor pad. I set everything up and figured things would be fine. A week with a quiet old bird for company while I binged Netflix on my pull-out couch. Easiest gig ever. It was at night, long after I'd turned off the lamp. The TV buzzed snow over me, providing me a nice ambient mood for me to doze to. A soft series of whistles and coos interrupted my sleep. I closed my eyes and shifted a little, intent on ignoring the noises. Then there was a gentle croaking, like the opening of a door, and that snapped me wide awake. We should kill him. My eyes opened fully, and my heart pounded. It took a moment to realize that it had been Tiku's voice. I sat up and looked at the cage, catching the half-shadowed image of the parrot. Tiku stared back, beady, reflective eyes, cocking its head to the side, his neck feathers ruffled as he let out a few clicks and continued. He's making too much noise. We should kill him. Crazy bird, I sighed, simmering down as I recognized the lines from any mob movie of the past century. Those two need to lay off the Scarface. I reached for the remote and turned off the TV, plunging Tiku and I into darkness. I remembered something about putting a blanket over the bird's cage and they'd go to sleep. I figured that was pretty much the same thing, and I'd almost entered a dream when Tiku kicked me back to reality. We should kill him, Sean! He's making too much noise. We should kill him. I'm tired. The anxiety hit my gut like a punch to the face. I stayed awake for the rest of the night, occasionally hearing Tiku repeat himself from time to time. Eventually he stopped, but not before I had fully understood. Not before the twisting truth of Molly's miscarriages and stillbirths struck. Not before I recognized that Ryan's tummy hadn't been as plump as I would have imagined a healthy baby's to be. Not before the cold realization that, in less than a week, Molly and Sean would be back for what they'd left behind. It was more of a smart plan than I want to admit, leaving a near-silent bird with a half-deaf mother-in-law, but Molly and Sean hadn't prepared for everything. They hadn't considered me having to step up. That Tiku would be listening a lot more closely than they imagined. And now I don't know what to do, now that I've heard what he's been practicing.